there were little small pillows sort of, and they were sitting at this table so that John the Baptist, he's dead. John, who's sitting there, the text talks about him leaning on Jesus's breast. He had to be sitting at a certain side of Jesus in order to be able to lean on him. At the same time, the text talks about Judas was sitting in the seat of honor. So one has to understand, well, what side? Was he across the table from Jesus? Was he to his right? Was he to his left? Was he sitting under the table? What is the seat of honor? He was actually in the seat of honor, which was to Jesus' left. Traditionally, the seat of honor. So the one who was about to betray Jesus was sitting in the seat of honor. That's submerged stuff. That's depth stuff. Jesus had him in the seat of honor. And the reason why he did, and here's what I want to show you, is how hard Jesus worked to bring that brother out of darkness. So by the time he goes and hangs himself, ain't no need us going, Jesus didn't give him a chance. He really didn't have it from the beginning, because there's that text that says, for this he was born. You know, we saw that. He's the son of perdition. All right. Let me just read this 13th chapter. It's not that long. Let's read it together. I'll make the points to you, and we'll go home. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" Jesus replied, "You do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand." Put a question mark by that. Question mark, exclamation point, asterisk, anything. But that's a vital statement that Jesus is making there. "No," said Peter, "you should never wash my feet. Unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Then Lord, Simon Peter replied, "Not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body is clean. And you are clean, though not every one of you." Now, I wonder who Jesus talking about. We know, don't we? Okay. For he knew who was going to betray him. That's the cue. And that was why he said not everyone was clean. When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly so, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's feet. I have set you an example that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do them. I am not referring to all of you. I know those I have chosen. But this is to fulfill the scripture. He who shares my bread has lifted up his heel against me. I am telling you now before it happens, so that when it does happen, you will believe that I am he. I tell you the truth, whoever accepts anyone I send accepts me, and whoever accepts me accepts the one who sent me." After he had said this, Jesus was troubled in spirit and testified. I want you to put an asterisk by that. That's very significant. So this isn't just some moment of folly to Jesus. It says that Jesus was troubled. If I got time, well, next week I'll give you the Greek right there. Just how ripped up Jesus was. He was very disturbed at this point. He was troubled in spirit, the NIV says. I'm going to show you what Moffat says. I'm going to show you what Phillips says. I'm going to show you about 10 other translations, how they break that Greek word down and try to really show you at the apex and the inner sanctum of Jesus's heart and soul, how stirred he was, how vexed he was. NIV says he was troubled in spirit. Underline that, troubled in spirit. That was what was going on in Jesus's bosom when he's talking about this all the time. He was troubled in spirit. His disciples stared at one another, at a loss to know which of them he meant. One of them, the disciple whom Jesus loved, was reclining next to him. Simon Peter motioned. I want you to underline that. Peter motioned to this disciple and said, ask him which one he means. Martin Luther, in his German translation, says that Peter winked at him and said, which one is he talking about? Or nodding, kind of gave a head notion, hey, what's he talking about? Oh, that Greek stuff breaks it down, boy. Martin Luther said he winked and said, man, who's he talking about? Leaning back against Jesus, he asked him, Lord, who is it? Picture them sitting on the floor and John leaning on Jesus' chest. Jesus said, it is the one to whom I will give this piece of bread when I have dipped it in the dish. In dipping the piece of bread, he gave it to Judas Iscariot, son of Simon. As soon as Judas took the bread, Satan entered into him. What you are about to do quickly, Jesus told him, but no one at the meal understood why Jesus said this to him. Since Judas had charge of the money, some thought Jesus was telling him to buy what was needed for the feast or to give something to the poor. As soon as Judas had taken the bread, he went out. I want you to underline this. And it was night. And if the scriptures put it there, it's not just trying to say the sun was gone. It's trying to let you know that the works of darkness. Do you all see that? Light and darkness, day, night. At the 8th chapter it said at dawn. Now it's saying it was night. Now let me give you this and we'll go. You've been very good. Jesus made at least, put this somewhere, this is worth you putting it down, there's a hole anywhere. Jesus made at least 10 appeals to Judas. Back up to chapter 6. First appeal Jesus made to Judas. This is the very first one. Jesus made, let me say it again. Jesus made at least 10 appeals to Judas before he betrayed him. That's good to know. That's good to know. That Jesus made appeals. That he didn't just let the man go to his doom. 6th chapter. Here's the point I want you to get this. this. If you get nothing else, get this.